Hey, holla squad, how y'all doing? Can I just tell you something? Sometimes trusting God isn't about understanding the journey, okay? It's about surviving what you never saw coming and still choosing to believe he's good in the middle of it. Why be somebody else when I can be me? Why be somebody else when I can be me? You're already taken, cause I'm in the making. Cause I'ma be me, I'ma be me, I'ma be me, yes sir. I'm so good at being me. There it is. What's up? What's up, Holla Squad? Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the Hear My Heart show where real life meets real faith and we heal out loud. This is the space where we talk about the moments we didn't plan for and the God who meets us in them anyway. So if you are a part of the Holla Squad, drop a holla in the comment section. If you are new here, welcome home. You are heard, you are healed, and you are here on purpose. And I am super, super excited that you are here. Today, my VIP, or I should say tonight, my VIP is Donna Strong. She is a woman of faith. She's an author and a mother whose journey through her son's epilepsy diagnosis has shaped a powerful message of trust, resilience, and dependence on God. Through her book, Trust, Total Reliance Under Stressful Times, she shares the reality of navigating unexpected life challenges and reminds others, especially mothers, that they are not alone and that God is always present in the midst of it all. So I ain't gonna do this show by myself. I can't do an introduction to her and not bring her to the stage. So Donna, come on out.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, wherever you may be, evening.
Good
So
morning, good
good to be
afternoon,
here.
and good evening, huh?
Yes, yes.
I love it.
So good to be
Tell
with you.
Thank you. I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for your yes. I appreciate that. Before I start every show, I always love asking every single VIP the opening question, which is, what are you thankful for in this season of your life?
Oh my gosh. I was just in my devotion time this morning. I
Mhm.
love the song Goodness of God. That has to be one of my all-time favorite songs
All
right
right.
now.
Mhm.
And so I started my day this morning just listening to that song and began really thanking God for where everything is because I didn't expect to be in this place
Mhm.
as an author. That was never, never, never on my bucket list to do. In fact, the ironic thing is, I don't like to read.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. And so God has a sense of humor telling me to write a book when I don't even like to read. But He knew that the journey that our family has taken needed to be shared. And so I was thanking him because he is opening the doors for just that, just like with you. Uh, I'm meeting people through podcasts that I didn't know existed, uh, brothers and sisters in the Lord. He is just opening places for me to go, television shows, radio interviews, to get the message to the people that, as you said, you are not alone. God is there. He just asks you to trust him and he will bring you through it. So right now, this time, I told someone the other day, I said, it's just mind blowing what he is doing. And I don't know where it's all going to lead, but I've just got to trust him with the journey and know that he will be there with me through all of it.
I know that's right. That's a big thing there is to trust God. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but it's
Mhm.
something that is super, super necessary for us to do is to trust God. And like some of us can be control freaks. And I know I have been guilty of it. Like, I'm always wanting to be in control. That's one of the reasons why it was kinda honest statement is kinda one of the reasons why it was tough for me to, wanna drink because I like being in control. I don't like an altered state of mind,
Mhm.
because too much of it is gonna be like, "I need to be in control. Wait, hold on."
Right.
So, have I drank before? Absolutely, I won't lie to you. Absolutely, I have, but then it was just like, I felt like again, the control freak in me says, "I'm not in control. Something else is making me wanna do something else, and I can't do."
Right.
The minute that I was able to, completely submit my life over to the Lord and trust that He has
Mm.
things in control, that He has the world in His hands, that He can see things that I can't see, it was a little scary for me, I won't lie, but, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, "Alright, God, I have to trust you, I gotta talk to you, and then I gotta take heed to what I hear you say."
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, if we trust him and then he tells us to do something and then we don't follow through,
Mhm.
that obedience or lack of obedience is not a good route for our lives because he
Right.
does know what's ahead for us. And I'm not been a drinker either because I have alcoholism on my mom and my dad's side of the family, and I saw what it could do and how it could overtake someone. And when they tried to get away from it, it was so empowering for them in what they had already reached that it was impossible. I had one uncle who actually was sober for 8 years, but he had done so much damage to his body and the pain was so intense, he started back again. And, that's pretty powerful to see that something had that much hold on him even after that length of time. And I know that I'm not a disciplined person. My thing is chocolate.
Okay.
I am a chocoholic. And in fact, one of my favorite things is chocolate milk. I'm going to tell on myself here. I have a 28-ounce glass that I fill with milk. And then I do the Nesquik and the serving tablespoons that you use with food, not the little 1 tablespoon thing in measuring, the serving things. I would do 3.5 heaping scoops of that Nesquik in that 28 ounces. And one day I thought, I just wonder how much sugar is in here. So I measured before I put it in 120 grams of sugar. That's
For
like
scoop.
4 sodas that I was drinking in one, and I was doing it 3 times a day. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So for me, that's my thing that I have to give up. And let me tell you right now, I could drink that all day long by the taste and everything, but I know it's not good for me and that I need to stay away from that. And that's going to be different for each of us. And that's what I believe that scripture, work out your own soul's salvation, means. We can't work salvation, but we have to work out the various things that maybe for you, you could drink 1 glass of that a week and be fine. Whereas for me, it's like it's a daily thing. And so it's something, some people always say, well, I don't know if that's a sin or not. Well, it may not be a sin, but it's something that I have to overcome in my life that is not good for me.
Mhm,
So now
mhm.
the world knows my big
We know your vice
big
now.
frustration. Yeah.
But it's beautiful that you're sharing that because we all have our vice. We all have
Yes.
our thorn in our flesh, so to speak.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you may I'm not saying that drinking chocolate milk, like you stated, is I'm not saying that's a sin, but we all
Right.
have something. We all have a sin or something that will keep us, that's besetting us from getting us to where we need to get
Mhm.
to. And it's easy sometimes for us to finger point and say, oh, it's easy to see fornication. It's easy for us to see adultery, it's easy to see. But there's a lot of sins or things that hold us back. And just because you may not sin the way I sin, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a wrong thing. We just do it differently. I should say it that way.
Exactly.
So I can't finger
Exactly.
point you at because you drink three. You said milk and my stomach started bubbling. But that's just because my system doesn't work well with milk. But I'm not gonna crucify
Right.
you because you can drink 3 glasses of milk. Mine, on the other hand, I just say the word and I'm like, "Mm." But I can't crucify you. It's just that's
Right.
something we do. We will get down hard on someone for
Yes.
them doing something differently. It's not necessarily that it's wrong, it's just different.
different. Yeah.
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 When a question for you. When your son, though, was, diagnosed, what was the emotional reality that you faced as a mother? Hold on, Holla Squad. This is your commercial break. Now, if you've been watching the Hear My Heart show, nodding your head, feeling seen, getting convicted, and whispering, yeah, I probably do need some help. Well, praise God for honesty. I'm Coach Tiffany Rochelle, and I help women grow in clarity, confidence, and their calling. So, whether you're wanting coaching, encouragement, or resources that'll help you stop spinning in circles, head over to tiffanyrochelle.me. Baby, don't just get inspired and then go sit down somewhere. Do something with what God is showing you. Now, back to our show.
Oh my goodness. Well, in the 4 or 5 months prior to his diagnosis,
Mhm,
I actually had come to the point with his behavior. We were seeing behavior in him that was unlike his personality. So we were seeing the ramifications on the outward because seizures were taking place in the brain, but we weren't seeing like the staring or the shaking or anything like that. It was just anger that was coming through. And I told my husband at one point, I said, and he would get right in my face and just be so belligerent. And I told my husband, I said, I feel like the next thing is that he could strike me. And he
mhm.
was 8 years old.
Wow.
And so at that point, because it was so emotionally draining as a mom, I had to simply tell myself I am his caregiver. I couldn't think of myself as his mom at that point because it was too emotional for me to deal with. And then when we got the diagnosis then of the epilepsy, it was like, okay, I could kind of step back and now become his mom in with the caregiving and give him the emotional support that he needed. But if we had known the journey we would be facing from that diagnosis in February of 2004 to today,
Mhm,
God gives us exactly what we need to know right at that time because it would have been too much. It would
mhm,
just have been too much for me to handle. And, I'm not a person that has dealt with depression or anxiety or anything like that. I've been pretty even keel my whole life.
mhm,
And when we went for his testing with the psychiatry department because they thought there was something going on psychologically with him rather than physically, and I asked the gentleman who did all the questioning to Douglas and then my husband and me, I said, you've done this a while. I know we're coming back next week to visit for the results, but what do you think? And he said, well, I can't really tell you for sure, but I'm seeing maybe some ADD, some ADHD, some ODD, and maybe bipolar. And I went, and I looked at my husband, I said, I can deal with one, but I can't deal with four.
and that's a
There's no
lot.
way.
Mhm,
And so then the following week, when we came back and met with the department head for the review and tabulation and all this, Douglas had one of his episodes there. And it was interesting because the night before, my husband and I were in the kitchen and he said, man, he said, I wish when we got to the hospital tomorrow, he'd have one of these episodes. And I said, well, I hate to tell you, but I've been on Google and they say that that happens in less than 1% of the cases. And he said, well, we can hope and we can pray.
mhm.
And the next day he had the episode, and the doctor said, is that what you've been talking about? It's like, yes. And he said, I'm not going to put any label on that kid until we get him in the hospital for testing.
Mhm, mhm,
So God answered our prayer right there at the hospital at Cincinnati Children's in front of that doctor. So they knew what to do because
mhm.
if they had taken another route, it could have taken longer. He could have had a seizure that maybe, would not have been a good outcome. So
Mhm.
God was with us all the way.
Yeah, and that can be a jarring sight to see, for
Oh,
your child
yes.
to have one of those particular episodes, because that is
Yes.
really tough to see. I had a girl,
Yes.
that I was going to the hospital and going to the doctor's offices with her, and it was just really, really tough to see. Like, and for me, the rescuer, here I go being a control freak again. Like, I'm like, "No, I don't want you to do this. Let me hold you. You can't okay, don't wait. Oh my god, you're getting ready to bite your tongue. Oh my," and you can't stick your finger in. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of freaking out a little bit, and I'm like, "I don't know what to do," and and the dad's like, "Hey, I can't handle that." He wasn't mentally, like, able and equipped to handle that, and I'm like, "I don't know what to do." So I'm like, "Oh, gee," I can't even pray. All I can pray was Jesus. Like, that's the
Mhm.
only thing that because
Right.
I didn't at that point in time, didn't really know what to do. How do I handle that? What am I supposed to say? How do I show up? Like, that is
Mhm.
really scary, and then when I had to go to the doctor with her, and then they put all the different,
The
stickers.
EEG, yes.
Oh my god, that was something else. How did your faith carry you through moments where it felt overwhelming? Because I was overwhelmed in that moment. How did that feel?
Yes. Yeah, it was very sobering. My dad had an immense amount of faith and trust in God, and I've always had a large amount of that, but it really gets tested when it's your own child. And I suffered with febrile seizures as an infant.
Okay.
And my mom had said that my dad would stick his hand or fist in my mouth or a billfold or something so that I wouldn't bite my tongue, which now they say is impossible to do,
Mhm,
and so those EEG grids, when they put them on your child and you know that they're monitoring, and when he was in the hospital the first time for the initial diagnosis, he was fighting them, and he would take a straw paper and he would put it in his mouth and chew it, and they were trying to get it. And it was just, and I kept saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And they're like, it's okay. We deal with this. This is okay. You just relax. And I'm thinking, but my son's doing this and he's acting this way. And we teach our kids to be kind and gracious to people. And then he's fighting doctors, and there are 4 or 5 of them trying to get him calmed down.
mhm,
And so I looked at my husband and I said, I just have to take a breather. And I had to step out of the room a couple times just to kind of get myself back mentally to where I was just like, okay, God, you've got this. I know you're not going to leave us. And then I would go back. But, there were times still that it was tough. It was not an easy road. And there have been times that I've been extremely frustrated and said, God, I don't get this. What is this supposed to accomplish? My husband and I have always had a good marriage. My kids gave their heart to Christ at young ages. We were serving in the church. I was singing, and my husband on the praise team, and all of this and all of this. We're doing
mhm,
all the right things. Why? But sometimes doing all the right things doesn't mean that troubles and trials and things won't come your way. And that was something I had to learn. But even though I can't say today that I know why my son has had to deal with this and our family's had to deal with this, I know that God has it in his plan, that it is doing something. And I wouldn't have written the book and I wouldn't be on your show today encouraging people. So I have to remind myself of those things because, he was diagnosed in 2004 and here we are in 2026 and he's still dealing with breakthrough seizures. We're in the midst now of reducing one med and increasing another.
mhm.
He went through brain surgery unsuccessfully at age 14.
Wow.
In 2020, when everything was shut down that February, and here in Ohio, we were one of the first states to just, everything is shut down. And in February of that year, he had decided to have a vagal nerve stimulator implanted, and it's basically a pacemaker for the brain.
Okay.
So the pacemaker wire goes up through the vagal nerve to the brain instead of having the wires go to the heart. Well, it's February 2020. And they said, okay, we'll get you on the list. And of course, March 15th here in Ohio, we shut down. They shut down elective surgeries and all that. And then on May the 1st, they reopened elective surgeries. And so I thought, well, it's probably going to be a while because you have heart surgeries, cancer, different things. Got a call that afternoon from the hospital saying we're allowed to do elective surgeries again, and so we want to get him scheduled. And I was like, okay, when are you scheduling? Well, we have him scheduled next Friday. And I went, in a week?
Right.
And they said yes. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting it so soon. And they said, no, we
Mhm.
have the time, we want to get it done. But my husband and I had to sit out in the parking lot. We could not go in the hospital with him. And
That's
so we're
tough.
sitting there with our son in surgery, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Part of that was almost worse than being in the hospital with him, watching him do all of the things that I didn't want him to do. And then they called us and said, okay, you can come in. One of you can come in. We both couldn't go in. So my husband said, I'll go, and he went and they walked out to the car and we came home. So we have been on a journey that I never expected to be on. He's never driven a car because he doesn't feel the seizures coming on. He has no auras, no inklings or anything, and he doesn't remember them.
Wow. So
So,
you guys remember, he doesn't. You guys
right.
see, he doesn't.
We see. I charted every one of his seizures since I've still got the seizure diaries back from 2007 when they said, we're seeing him increase because they would increase his meds as he weighed more, because he was 9 years old when he was diagnosed. So as he grew, he needed more meds. But by the time 2007 rolled around, he had pretty much gotten his height and everything. He went through adolescence very early, and I've often wondered if that was maybe a trigger because his body just went through change so quickly. His voice changed from "hi mom" to "hi mom" in 2 days. I didn't even get a chance to make fun of him. The voice changes. And so, you know, it was interesting. So in 2007, when he was at that point where he was pretty much adult teeth, I mean everything, I started charting and saying how long they were, where he was, what he was doing, how it lasted, so that we could track what we needed. And I'm still keeping the charts to this day.
Wow. Do you believe you're going to always have him around? Do you believe that you'll ever be able to be like an empty nester?
Janister, that's something we really don't know. He would love more than anything to be out on his own, but unless God sends a mate to him, which I'm praying for, and he really wants to be married. He said,
Oh,
I really want to be married. So I know God hasn't called him to, that single lifestyle. And he's 31, so I believe God has someone out there for me. And in fact, a few years ago, I bought the dress to wear at his wedding, and it's hanging in my closet upstairs in
come
faith.
on. I was
That-
just getting ready to say, you better walk in faith. Oh,
Yes, yes. And, I believe God has someone out there for him who can nurture him. A friend just recently who's been through a lot of heart surgeries and things like that just recently got married, and he married a nurse who deals with heart patients. So
how about
I look at that, and that was kind of almost an inspiration to me that there is someone out there for Douglas. I know it. And I just keep praying for her that God will send her at the right time and that they will know. And there have been a couple girls that, he's talked with and stuff, and he said, it just doesn't feel right. And I said, then don't
don't
go
do it.
there. If it
Mhm.
doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So I know God has that under control too, but it would be nice for him and for my husband and me.
Yeah.
We have a daughter who's 2.5 years younger
Mhm.
than Douglas, and she's been married now for almost 8 years.
Okay. Okay.
And so they lived with us for a while because they sold their house so quickly and everything. But I see her and her husband and how happy they are and the life they're making. And I'd like to see that same thing for Douglas, of course.
It can happen, it definitely can. Sounds like you already know how to prophesy to your future and try to say, "This is what I want to see." It ain't that you're lying or you're in denial. You are speaking what you wanna
I'm
see because you
speaking.
understand the power of your
Yes.
words. Life and death is
Yes.
in the power of your words and your tongue.
Yes,
So
it
you are
sure is.
going if that's what you and you bought your dress. So if that's what you
I
wanna
bought
see,
my
you
dress. Yes. Yes.
what does
Yes.
trusting God actually look like in real life when things, don't improve overnight? What does it look like for you?
Well, I am someone who kind of likes things to be done quickly, because I know God can do it. And when I was writing the book, it was interesting because, faith was intertwining with the trust.
Mhm.
And so I just, I talk to God just like I'm talking to you. I don't come with big flowery words or these or thous. It's just like, God, I'm not getting this. And so I asked him, I said, Lord, what is the difference between faith and trust?
Oh,
And he spoke to my spirit and said, faith is believing God can do fill in the blank.
yeah.
Trust is knowing he will. And I was like, whoa. So we have to have the faith first in order to move into that trust. And, the Bible teaches that if we have faith the size of a grain of
Mhm.
mustard seed, not the mustard seed faith we hear about, but the grain of mustard seed. That mustard seed is made up of a whole lot of little grains. And so what we see in the necklace, which is so tiny, is actually bigger
Yeah.
than the grain.
Mhm.
So if we have that little grain of faith, we can say to that mountain, be moved, and it'll be cast into the sea. And each one of us is given a measure of faith. Sometimes our measure may be more, just like when we're doing a recipe, we may have more of one thing than another. And some days we may have more faith than other days. But when we put it all together, it's going to come out just wonderfully well. And so we just have to first have that faith. And some days we may have to ask for more faith. I need more faith in this situation before I can move into that total trust. And I learned faith from my father. He was such a man of faith. And I saw God heal him with a skin cancer back in 1975. And after the prayer at the church service, he said, I know I'm healed. He never went to the doctor again, and they never called him for his follow up like they
Yeah.
were supposed to.
Mhm.
He lived another 40 years before God called him home. So I've seen miracles in my life, and I know that the Bible says God doesn't change. We're the ones that change in the way we look at things, but he's still the same. And so sometimes we just have to talk to ourselves a little bit and give ourselves a little bit of a come on now, come to Jesus meeting for ourselves, and remind ourselves. And I try to have the perspective when I get in that gunk that if Jesus went through everything he did and yet didn't say a word and all he said was, Father, forgive him, I can make it because mine's not that. And it kind of takes my problem and puts it back down to size.
Mm. Oh, that's woman. That's all I got for you. Woman. I love the faith and the trust analogy. I absolutely love that. That
Yes.
is something super, super powerful. What would you say to um what would you say to mothers who are currently walking through something that they have never expected? If you're looking at the word heart, you'll see the word ear. I'm going to say you have our
Mhm.
ear. So tell us what's on your heart. If you were able to speak to that mother, what would you say?
Don't give up and don't second guess yourself. You know, one of the questions that was asked when we started through this process, what was your pregnancy like? Were there any issues? And then I start thinking, oh, wait a minute, do I do something wrong?
Yeah.
And that's the enemy trying to put blame on ourselves because God has a plan.
Mhm.
And even if I had done something wrong, this might not have occurred. And
Yeah.
yet I could have done everything correct
Yeah.
and this occurred. So we cannot look to ourselves in blame for what may be happening.
Mm.
We just have to be in the moment, be in the moment with God. We may have to leave. When this first started, it was Mother's Day 2003,
Wow.
and we had come home from church. And normally in the past, our church was small enough that our pastor and his wife would have the whole church, whoever wanted to come over to their house on Mother's Day. The
Mhm.
guys would do the grilling. We ladies would, of course, make food ahead of time and take, potluck. But they would do all the grilling, all the cleanup for all the moms and all the ladies of the church who maybe weren't moms. Well, my son loved going to their house because they had a big jungle gym in the backyard and all the kids were there, and he's a people person. And so we came home from church, and the pastor's wife had told me that morning they weren't able to have it that year because the church had grown to the size that they couldn't accommodate everyone. And so when we get home, Douglas is like, "When are we going over to the pastor's house?" And I said, "Well, we're not."
Ready.
"What do you mean we're not?" "It's
Mhm.
tradition. We always go." And I'm like, "Oh, here's what happened." "Well, that's not fair." And he just got so irate. And it was Mother's Day. And he was just, livid and upset and angry. And I looked at my husband, I said, "I gotta go. This is Mother's Day. I shouldn't have to deal with this." And I went to Kroger about 5
Mhm.
minutes from the house. I didn't need a thing, but I just needed to get away. And I ran into a lady. I heard somebody say, "Hi, Donna." And I turned around, it was a lady from church, and she said, "I didn't get to tell you personally, Dave, but happy Mother's Day." And I just started bawling right there in the middle of the grocery store. And she's like, "What's going on?" And so I told her, and so she just wrapped her arms around me and started praying. I didn't care who was watching. And then I went back home and I was okay. So you may have to just pull away for a moment, go to the bathroom, lock the door, and just get composed. And that's okay because we can't be Wonder Woman 24/7, 365. And God knows He gave us that mother's heart. And I've heard people say that a mother's heart has to be the closest to God's, and I believe that, you know? So He knows what we're going through. So just, maybe you have to just go in and just sit in a tub of hot water and light some candles or whatever to just give yourself, and that's okay because you're gonna be better in the long run when you take care of yourself, because a caregiver has to remember you got to take care of yourself as well, or you won't be good for whoever you're caring for.
Mhm. And that's something we have to take care. As a caregiver, you gotta give care, and that's just not giving it to somebody else. You can care
Uh,
for you too. If you're gonna be a caregiver, take care all be a whole caregiver in totality. Airlines tell us to secure our mask, right? So care for you
right?
too. There's no way that you're gonna effectively care for somebody if you don't care for you first. Like, you
Hmm.
gotta be taken care of too. That's
Yes.
powerful. Like, take care man, now that's resonating with me. Take care of you first.
We all need that reminder from time to time.
Holla squad, holla squad. This right here is real life and real faith. Donna, thank you so much for showing us what it means to trust God, not just when things are good, but when life takes a turn and we never ask for that. And to everyone watching, you may not understand the journey, but God is still in it. If this blessed you, show some love to the show, please, and thank you. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already, and share this show with someone who needs encouragement. And holla, squad, if you felt that, holla. Grace and peace, y'all.